How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Inside the Burrow. My name is Jib Kelly, joined by JJ Metz as always, and Kevin is back here on the show with us today. Kevin, how you doing?
Doing well. I'm doing well. Probably feels better to get this out after a win than, the
Uh,
three losses in a row.
yeah, sitting
I think it
here.
started to finally feel like I don't want to say it, but probably felt a little bit like hell, losing to Ohio, then going to Clemson, and we all know how that game went. And then I don't know if we
Yeah,
really want to talk about the Illinois game. That one
yeah, it
was
got rough. I
certainly a
mean,
game.
we got to see like the complete destruction of JJ's ego when it comes to the FAU football team. JJ went from the highest of highs to just the lowest of lows when it comes to FAU football. JJ, after that
There,
win last week, are we feeling a little better? Are we feeling a little less like doom and gloomy?
Yeah, that was a great reassurance for me. And now I believe in this FAU football team. I think now they can get the job done and win games on Saturday. And I actually have belief in them to start winning in conference. And I'm really proud of their performance this Saturday.
Before we even get to that point, are we going to be getting a 50-point FAU win from your prediction? Don't have to go into
You'll have
in
to
depth with
wait
it
and
yet, but
see.
go
You'll have
ahead.
to wait and see.
Okay, we'll have to wait and see.
I
Uh,
feel like we might be getting 70 from him. I think we'll be getting a cool like 77-7 win from FAU from JJ this week.
we just might. You guys are gonna have to stick around and wait for that one to the end of the podcast to get our predictions. But as I don't know if I mentioned or not, but most of you guys watching should know we're playing USF. It still baffles me that the school is somehow called University of South Florida in Tampa. Couldn't explain it if I even tried. I'm sure there's a reason. I'm sure at one point maybe in history that's considered South Florida when they didn't want to keep fighting through alligators and panthers and deer, trying to continue down their way here. But we were playing USF. USF coming into this game has already played 3 conference games. FAU played their first last week, of course, won their 2-1 conference, 3-3 overall on their schedule. They have seen losses against Western Kentucky, against Alabama, and last week against University of Alabama Birmingham. Their most notable game was that loss against Alabama, and they've had victories against Florida A&M, Rice, and Navy. When you think about the school from this season, like I said, it is about that game where they only held Alabama to 17 points. However, that was kind of on a technicality that Alabama was playing their second and third string quarterbacks. The two of them only had 107
Let's
passing yards. So, Kevin, what do you know about this USF football team?
I feel like it's also important to mention that the entire USF Alabama game was played in like a literal monsoon,
Yes, that
where
too.
they could only use like one camera for half the game on ESPN. And anytime you could only use one camera on an ESPN broadcast, it's normally not a good thing in terms of weather-related circumstances. Now, this USF team is at least surprising me. Coming into this season, I think a lot of people, media and fans alike, sort of projected this team to be in a rebuild. And when you expect rebuild, you think 1 or 2 wins, you know, ugly games. Maybe you win a couple games you're not supposed to win, but they've handled business against some teams. Rice, Navy, like these are teams that I feel like last year USF probably loses to. But they were able to win it this year. This is a completely new look roster from a year ago, and from that to different scheme related things from Alex Galesh and defensive coordinator Todd Orlando, who FAU fans are way too familiar with. There is some weird stuff about this USF team. They're going to play fast on offense. This is pretty much everything you saw from Tennessee's offense last year, just at a dumbed down version because they don't have a quarterback like Hendon Hooker to run it. But this is a team that can put up numbers and can make a lot of plays on offense. The biggest question mark, I think, is what this defense looks like week to week. And so far, outside of the one game against Alabama, where it felt like Alabama shot themselves in the foot more than USF played good defense, it just has not been pretty defensively for USF.
Yeah, if you're not a USF fan or paying attention to the AAC too much, you would be, it would make sense that you would think that USF, you take a look at that Alabama game, that they have a very good defense, when that just simply is not the case. They had held Alabama with 17 points. The other 5 games, they are averaging 36 points allowed per ball game to opponents, but they're still 3-3. And that is pretty much entirely on the shoulders of Byron Brown, who has been almost everything for this USF offense so far this season. So JJ, tell us about Byron Brown and what he adds to this team.
Yeah, for sure. Byron Brown is a very versatile quarterback. He's thrown for a total of 1,500 yards this season, 11 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. He had a QBR of 60.0 so far this season, but one of his most notable games was that game against Rice. I mean, that his numbers were phenomenal in that 42-29 win. He was 22 for 29, 435 yards, no INTs, and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, he can put numbers up, and honestly, I mean, he could be the difference between a win and a loss for USF this Saturday.
Yeah, everything runs through him. You look at the passing numbers, like JJ just said.
Quite literally everything runs through him, let's be clear.
1,500 yards, 11 touchdowns. The issue is, though, in something similar we saw last week for FAU taking in the game that we saw last Saturday against, I already forgot, Tulsa. And Tulsa was that their offensive line just cannot hold up. He's already been sacked 26 times this season. And we see that also in the ground game with their leading running back, Naquan Wright, having just under 300 yards, averaging 4 yards a carry. Byron Brown is their leading rusher. So he is going to have to do everything in the passing game and in the ground game. He's running around, scrambling. So Kevin, what would you say is the best key for FAU to hold him in this game?
I think the biggest thing is you have to find a way to get pressure on him because, you know, it's easy to sit here and say like, oh, well, the offensive line is bad, you're going to get pressure. But FAU this season has proven that getting pressure has been a challenge at times. And I don't personally know if that for FAU that's a personnel related thing of we just don't have the dudes up front to get pass rusher. You know, it's the scheme related things or, you know, you were playing good offensive lines. I don't really know, but when you're playing against a team like USF, you have to make life hard for Byron Brown because he's just one of those quarterbacks that like if you give him an inch, he'll take a mile, and he takes a mile every time because, you know, he's athletic as heck. Like, you know, you watch him run and he breaks 6 tackles and he has these highlight plays where you just go, okay, man, this isn't a quarterback. I don't know why we're watching this guy play quarterback, but, you know, if you can force him to throw the football and force him to stay in the pocket as much as possible, and that seems easier said than done, you take away his biggest asset, and you take away the biggest asset that UCF has for him, which is, or USF, excuse me, not UCF. I know no one likes that when you mention them together, but you know, when you take away the ability for Byron Brown to run effectively, it removes the biggest part of their offense because they love to run design runs. They love to run like zone read options and stuff and get him moving. And if you remove that from his playbook and his arsenal, you know, he's just another quarterback you have to play. And, you know, luckily for FAU, they had to play a similar set against Tulsa. You know, both of Tulsa's quarterbacks were super athletic and were able to beat them on the ground. But, you know, when FAU got pressure, that game was over. And when FAU effectively got pressure, you effectively stopped them for most of that game.
Yeah, that was the next point I was going to make was that, you know, JJ, last Saturday, we got to see that firsthand that the FAU defensive line, while the sack numbers weren't necessarily there, Cardell Williams, who played the majority of the game before Braylon Braxton came back into the game, who hadn't made an appearance since earlier in the season, when we were able to get into his face, he had a rough time, threw a couple interceptions, you know, made some bad throws, but when he had time to throw and he was able to read the defense and, you know, had that extra second, they were able to push the ball down the field and got into the end zone. So, JJ, do you think, how much of an advantage do you think it is for FAU since they're coming against a very similar quarterback that we saw last week and we were able to get the victory over?
Yeah, it's extremely important to get pressure on USF this week. And we saw against Tulsa, as you mentioned, Cardell Williams, when he was pressured and we brought the blitz, he struggled under pressure. So, I mean, it's vital again this week to do the same. And that ultimately helped us get a win. And we saw our defense last week. I mean, I thought they looked pretty good. I thought our D-line looked very, very good last week. So we should continue to do that this week. And we need to put a lot of pressure on USF's offense.
Yeah, and when he does have time to sit back in pocket, that being Brown, he mostly looks for his two main wide receivers, Sean Atkins and Naeem Simmons. Atkins, leading receiver on the team, 36 catches, 422 yards, 3 touchdowns. Naeem Simmons, 22 catches, 401 for also 3 touchdowns. So very similar output when you get to those guys, both with 3 touchdowns apiece. Both a very similar build, both around the 5'10", 175, 185 range. But FAU has their own star receiver, LeJontay Wester. Now, just as was last week, still maintains that spot of third in the country when it comes to catches. JJ, how impressed have you been this season with LeJontay's output, and what do you expect from him going forward this season?
Look, I'm gonna say it, and I've said it before, but this will be the first time I say it on a podcast. Well, John T. Wester is the best receiver in the American Athletic Conference, and I'm very confident in saying that. Look, Daniel Richardson, he looks for LeJontay on literally every single play. LeJontay will be his first read. That connection between the two, it is like bread and butter, and Daniel's got to keep looking to LeJontay Wester. I expect LeJontay to continue racking up these receptions, maybe getting more touchdowns. He only has 2 touchdowns on the season, even though he's third in receptions on the season in all of college football. But I expect LeJontay Wester to have, I'd say, at least 8 receptions this week. And I think he's going to get in the end zone, and he's going to have a huge game this weekend.
It's seemingly that we need him to. The rest of the offense has either been held back with injuries, Barry Mobley being out for the season, Jaquan Burton had his concussion earlier on, Kobe Lewis took some time to get going. So it's really been the LeJontay show with this offense. But Kevin, if you were to point to one person, one skill position player on this offense that you feel confident in going forward, and maybe even in this USF game, who is that one guy?
I mean, again, the obvious answer is LeJontay Wester because he's that good. But it feels like sort of a cop-out answer just to go LeJontay Wester, LeJontay Wester, LeJontay Wester. Next question. I want to see Jaquan Burton finally put it together. Like, it feels like every single game there's moments where it's like, man, Jaquan Burton's still that dude. Jaquan Burton could still be really good. And I know he had the injury early on in the year, and he sort of feels like he's sort of getting back into speed. Him, Larry McCammon, like, those two guys need to be able to play at a high level. And starting against USF, like, I think both those guys can have really good performances against USF. I just watch USF play, and this isn't a discredit to their defense or their cornerbacks in particular, but they don't particularly like scare me. I'll watch a couple other teams in the American, and I'll go, okay, well, they've got some corners who are dudes, and they've got some corners who are going to be NFL talents at the end of the year. Like, Tulane's got a cornerback who's going to be in the NFL this year. But I don't see that out of USF right now. And that's, fine for them in terms of their rebuild, but FAU can take advantage of it through the air. And it hasn't been pretty yet through the air. Like, since Casey Thompson went down, you bring in Daniel Richardson. Like, I haven't felt confident in this passing game completely. I feel like it's still sort of dumbed down because they don't fully trust Daniel Richardson as much as they would Casey Thompson, which is expected. But, this is an offense that, like, can really, if they could find some kind of passing game that's consistent, they can put it all together and they can be one of the better teams in the conference. So, like, this feels like the perfect quote unquote get right game in terms of, like, finding your stride through the air and seeing if that can turn into, results for the offense.
And this kind of feels in a way a must-win game in terms of looking forward with positivity to the rest of the season. And it was certainly a must-win game last week against Tulsa. But it's your second conference game. You have the opportunity to go up 2-0. You're going against one of the worst defenses in the conference, and it's going to probably be a close game one way or another. But it is going to be a really good game to put the lens on the offense and say, what can you do? What is Daniel Richardson going to be able to do? This is now going to be his third full start in his game so far. He obviously came in during the Clemson game. It's been a mixed bag. He's just under 60% completion percentage, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, has been sacked 6 times. So what I saw from him last week being there at the game was when we were doing the scripted plays, that those first couple drives, everything looked pretty. The ball was moving down the field with ease, and we walked out of the first quarter with a 14-0 lead, and then the rest of the game only scoring 6 more points. Definitely needs to change, and against a team that allows a lot of points and can then score a lot of points themselves. There's going to be a lot on Daniel Richardson this week to operate the offense at its maximum efficiency, get other people involved. We definitely have a lot of confidence in Larry McCammon being involved, but Tony Johnson needs to step up. Jaquan Burton, another week where he's gotten even healthier. We've seen now, like I said, a few weeks from Daniel Richardson. JJ, how confident are you in his ability to lead this offense?
Yeah, I mean, I think if Casey was healthy, which obviously he's not, I would feel more confident in Daniel Richardson going out there and starting. I mean, he looked so composed, so calm. He looked great last week. And I mean, he went up to Illinois, a Power 5 school, and on the road, and almost ended up pulling off a win. So I just am really confident in Daniel Richardson. And I think that Daniel Richardson is going to have a huge day against USF. I think that if he can find his open receivers, as you mentioned, like LaJohntay Wester, BJ Alexander, Tony Johnson, Jaquan Burton, then, I mean, this is a recipe for success. And I also want to see the offense incorporate the running game a little bit more. Get Larry McCammon involved, get Kobe Lewis involved, and I mean, I think that Daniel Richardson is going to throw for over 275 yards this Saturday.
I mean,
if I may, real quick, I feel like the circumstances haven't been fair to Daniel Richardson because your first start is on the road against Illinois, and Illinois last year had one of the better defenses in the nation. And I know they lose Ryan Walters to Purdue, and I know that the circumstances have sort of changed there, but they still have one of the better defensive lines in the country. And so like it was already difficult from the start against Illinois to be like, yeah, I mean, he has to step in. That's your first start. Good luck, kid. And then your second start is against Tulsa, and like as you mentioned, they started the game off really well. When they were scripting plays, they were driving down the field with ease. And then it feels like once the second quarter started, it all sort of click. And again, not really his fault because the rain just started to pour down halfway through the second quarter and didn't stop until the end of the game. And so like there was never a point during these first 2 games for him that where I just felt like the circumstances were on his side. And hopefully, I don't know what the weather forecast is in St. Petersburg / Tampa Bay / whatever they call it. But like I feel like this is probably better circumstance for him in terms of having a game where nature isn't playing against you. You're not in a crowd that's incredibly loud. You're not in an area where like everything feels against you. So hopefully third game, the circumstances are probably a little bit more in your control and you can actually run the offense that you want, because the minute it started raining, you had to pretty much hand the ball off the entire game and hope that Larry McCammon could get something going and just hold the game off as long as you possibly could.
We're going to need him to, because what we saw last Saturday isn't sustainable. To have that 14-point lead that Tulsa was never able to overcome, only get to 17 points late in the fourth quarter. That's something that's not sustainable. On Saturday, I think is a very good opportunity to kind of flex a little bit, to feel more comfortable. This is the healthiest the offense has been. Obviously, we know Casey's not coming back, and we know Zuberi's not coming back, but everybody who was hurt earlier on the season, it's just another week that they got through without any injuries, another week that they've been able to heal. So eventually it's like, okay, now it's time. Now it's time to produce. We were talking all off season long about, okay, we're so confident in the offense. We talked all hyped up the offense so much that we just kind of overthought or underthought the idea that maybe there are some holes in this offense. Maybe there are some players that aren't going to step up and things we didn't see coming. Obviously, we didn't see Casey tearing his ACL. That was something you can never predict. Never predicted Daniel Richardson just a handful of games into the season. We thrown into the starting spot and say, all right, good luck. After coming here, assuming he's going to be the starter, then Casey comes in and immediately, even though it wasn't handed to him, we knew Casey eventually was going to be the starter. So it was a hard ask for him with his second receiver hurt, with one of his better running backs hurt, with one of his with Zaveri out for the season. So this is what FAU is going to look like. Hopefully, hopefully no more injuries. Fingers crossed. This is what FAU is going to look like for the rest of the season. And now it's Dan Richardson's time to, bring us back to 500. So with that being said, a little bit of a shorter podcast today without any guests, but we're going to get into our predictions. And JJ, like we mentioned earlier, and you saved your reaction a little bit, just a little bit of tease. The spread is 2.5, I believe, in favor of USF last time I checked. So they are the favorites going into this game. JJ, the floor is yours. How do we feel about this game?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm going to upset a lot of people with this prediction, but USF is about to get curb stomp smacked by FAU.
He's back, ladies and gentlemen.
If you're a USF fan, you might want to click off this video because I'm going to say a lot of bad things about this team. Now, this FAU team is going to be able to stop Byron Brown and do it very, very, very efficiently. USF is only going to put up 10 points in this game, and FAU is going to put up 42. This FAU D-line with Evan Anderson, they're about to destroy, curb stomp, smack USF. And I'm just so excited for this game. And by the way, USF, you're going to be our little bro after this rivalry game.
Oh, thank God. He's back, everybody. It took 3 weeks of losing, 1 week of winning, and JJ is back to being JJ. I'm all for it. You guys know how I feel when it comes to these predictions. Kevin, we going to go more realistic. We're back in JJ. What are we doing?
I'm not going to try and destroy the entire USF's, fan base's ego, like JJ would. I feel like that's more JJ's role. In terms of actual game, I feel confident saying that FAU wins this game by double digits. I think both these programs are in sort of different trajectories. USF is in the middle of this rebuild, and FAU is, I'm not going to say competing for the American, but they're among the teams that are competing for the American. And in terms of expectations, this is a game you have to win. This is a game you have to win comfortably. Whether this is a rivalry or not, I don't really know, nor do I really care. I'm not going to get involved in the whole, is this a rivalry talk? If it is, it is. If it's not, cool. We'll still beat you. But, I think that, FAU should be able to win this game comfortably. And I don't know if 30 points or whatever JJ said is expectation, but give me FAU winning this 38-20. I think that USF's offense is going to get something because this USF offense has some talent. They run a lot of plays and they run fast. So, when you run tempo as much as USF does, I don't know what their plays per minute are or plays per game are, but they're pretty high in terms of that. Comparatively, the league, that's a Alex Galesh, Josh Heupel staple in terms of running a lot of plays. So when you run a lot of plays like they do, you're gonna score. The defense is gonna get tired at points. So I don't know if this is gonna be 14 points, but USF is going, or FAU, excuse me, FAU is going to win this game. Give me 38-20. Player of the game, give me LaJohntay Wester with a pair of touchdowns. And you know what? I'll give one special prediction out here. Defensive touchdown by FAU tonight or this week. I'm not going to say any players, but someone on the defense is getting a touchdown today through a pick six or a fumble. I'm not. You can let your heart go wild in terms of who that is, but someone is.
If I were to assume, I would assume Jerron Morris. He's been just incredible for that secondary.
I didn't want to say it, but it's Jerron Morris.
Yeah.
Jaden Williams, probably.
Yeah,
but
they've been two of the best players on this defense with Evan Anderson. So if it is somebody, Probably. I probably go with Morris of everybody. Evan Anderson touchdown would be absolutely fantastic. We love seeing a big boy get a touchdown. Those celebrations are always the best.
I think if Evan Anderson scored a touchdown, I don't think my Twitter account would exist the next day. I have been very vocal about like Evan Anderson as a legitimate NFL talent, and I think most of the time it falls on deaf ears. If he gets an interception returned for a touchdown, like a fumble, force a fumble, returns it for a touchdown, I will be having that clip played at my funeral one day. As a before I die, lay me down. But hey, watch this big man score a touchdown one more time.
I need him to look like Christian Wilkins in the end zone when he scored his touchdown for the Dolphins, doing the worm, doing all his celebrations, his sacks. Oh yeah, just jump over somebody. Just please don't do it like over Daniel Richardson. Don't do it over LeJohn Wester. But
yeah, like please don't tear your ACL.
Yeah,
we still need you, but have some fun if you score a defensive touchdown.
Yeah, and I mean they play in Raymond James Stadium, which is already a terrible stadium, and you're playing in a full football stadium. Like, yeah, you'll barely be able to hear the fans that they're yelling anything at you. Like, that place, I don't think even gets that loud.
Or do like a Lambeau leap or something. Like, let's have some fun with this. If you score,
yeah, because I mean it's only like 3 hours up the road from us, so I'm sure there's gonna be quite a few FAU fans that travel up there.
I think it'll be a lot of FAU fans. I think USF is still going to get a good crowd because it's a game against FAU, but I think it'll be a pretty good FAU crowd.
Me personally, there will be more FAU fans in that crowd than USF. USF is a dead fan base, and we're holding a tailgate in that stadium. I'm probably gonna get up there. I know a couple of my friends are, and I mean we're just about to.
Oh my gosh.
I need to be clear that I do not agree with all of JJ's takes because I have some USF people that follow me on Twitter who may or may not be watching this, and so
no, please.
I do not fully agree with everything he is saying.
I don't think I have any more USF friends anymore. I think they've all graduated, so I can go crazy. I don't think it's gonna be a curb stomp. I think it's also even gonna be a closer game. I think I always come in here and predict a close game, except for I think the Monmouth game where I think that's the only game I came on here and predicted a blowout, and it wasn't like the blowout we thought it was, but it was still a pretty big differential at the end. We know USF's offense is gonna be fun. Even in their losses, like Brown last week had 400 all-purpose yards, led the team in rushing. Like they're going to be fun to watch. They're going to be one of the more fun opponents that we've seen on our schedule, just because any single play that they run, they can take it to the house, have a big explosive play. Their playmakers are quick. The quarterback's one of the fastest players on the team. Like they can make plays, they can put points up. But we know on the other end the same thing's going to happen, where we're going to be able to put points up. I like to see us probably try to control the clock a little better than we have at times. Like last week, we had a really difficult time running down that clock at the end. So, maybe in a situation where it comes to it that it's not going to be as high of a score because of that. But I do think there will be points put up on the board. I think it's going to be, I'm going to go in the 31-17 FAU. We really need to start looking back at these predictions that we're making, because I'm not sure if one prediction has even been close one way or another so far this year.
Let's not do that. I don't like it when my predictions get exposed on the internet afterwards.
I mean, I'm just glad we're back to 3-0 FAU winning. It took JJ a few weeks to come back around. Did you predict a win or a loss last week, JJ?
I predicted a Tulsa win and the Illinois win.
So, I mean, the Illinois was valid, but last week, hey, you were wrong, and now you just completely flipped 180 and going right back on curb stomp train.
Yes,
We're back.
We're back. We're back. FAU football's back. Opportunities to go back to 500. Opportunity to go 2-0 in our first ever AAC games. If you're excited, let us know down in the comments below. We really appreciate y'all watching today. If you haven't done so already, click that subscribe button, hit that like button. Thank y'all very much for watching. Take care, everybody. Go Owls.